All right, let's set the scene. We're going back to the early 1800s in Barbados. Now, to the British Empire, this place was basically a money printing machine. It was this perfect little Caribbean island built on sugar profits, and all of that wealth came from the brutal labor of enslaved Africans. And for the white planters who ran the show, they thought they had it all under perfect control.
Yeah, you heard that right. For more than 100 years, there hadn't been a single major revolt. And this led the enslavers to believe something incredibly dangerous and frankly arrogant, that the people they kept in bondage were, well, somehow okay with it. They actually boasted about their stable society, completely oblivious to the anger that was simmering just below the surface.
But that whole illusion of stability, it was about to be completely shattered. On April 14th, 1816, which happened to be Easter Sunday, a massive, brilliantly planned rebellion erupted. And the planters' boast, it literally went up in smoke as sugarcane fields burned all across the island.
So, what happened? How did this supposedly stable society just explode into flames? Well, as you might guess, it wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of grievances, inspiration, and opportunity that made this uprising not just possible, but pretty much inevitable.
A perfect storm is the only way to describe it. First, you've got the foundation, a deep, burning desire for freedom fueled by just brutal treatment. Then you add this incredible inspiration from Haiti, where the successful revolution proved to the entire world that enslaved people could actually defeat a colonial army. At the exact same time, news was trickling in from England about the abolitionist movement, which gave their cause a powerful moral backing. And here's the key detail about Barbados. The island is pretty flat. There were no mountains to escape to in former maroon communities, so for them, revolt was really the only path to freedom. All they needed was a leader.
And wow, did they have incredible leadership. At the very center of it all was Bussa, an African-born man who was the head ranger at a major plantation. He was a skilled organizer and a respected figure, but he wasn't alone. He had people like Nanny Grigg, a domestic worker who kept the story of the Haitian victory alive, constantly using it to inspire people. And then there was Washington Franklin, a free man who had a crucial role. He would read newspapers about the anti-slavery movement out loud, connecting their local fight to this huge global struggle for freedom. This wasn't a random riot. This was a coordinated effort by smart, determined people.
So with all this tension building, one final event lit the fuse. It was a British law called the Imperial Registry Bill. Now, the intent of the law was just to register the enslaved population to stop illegal slave trading. But the planters were furious. They saw it as London interfering in their business. And the enslaved population saw that anger and came to a completely different conclusion. They started to believe that this bill was actually an emancipation order from the king himself, and that their masters were illegally blocking it. In their minds, if freedom wasn't going to be given, well, they were going to have to take it themselves.
And so, on Easter Sunday, a day packed with the symbolism of resurrection and new life, the revolt began. For 3 intense days, the island of Barbados was engulfed in a war for freedom.
The plan launched with devastating effect. It kicked off in St. Philip Parish and just spread like wildfire. By the next morning, huge parts of the island were in open revolt. The entire sugar harvest, the absolute engine of the island's economy, ground to a complete halt. The initial shock was massive, but the colonial forces reacted with swift and overwhelming force, and by the 16th, the fight was over.
And let's be really clear about the scale here. This was not some small, isolated incident. The uprising raged across more than 70 of the largest estates on the island. This was a massive, coordinated attack on the entire system.
And right there in the heart of the fighting was Bussa himself. He personally commanded a force of about 400 men and women, leading them directly into battle against the colonial militia.
But despite their incredible courage and that shocking initial success, the rebellion was, in the end, crushed. And when you look at why, it just highlights the immense, almost impossible power imbalance they were up against. I mean, just look at the odds. The rebels had very little ammunition and no formal military training. On the other side, you had a well-armed militia that immediately declared martial law, giving them absolute power. The militia also had the support of the free-colored population and a clear, organized command structure. It was a tragically uneven fight right from the very start.
And the human cost? Well, it's just staggering and so incredibly lopsided. During all the fighting, only one white enslaver was killed. Just one. Now, compare that to the enslaved people. Over 500 lost their lives. Many, including Bussa, were killed in battle,
and many, many more were executed in the brutal crackdown that came after. But, and this is a huge but, the rebels did manage to inflict a massive economic blow. The estimated property damage was a staggering 175,000 pounds. A full quarter of the island's entire annual sugarcane crop was destroyed. They had proven, without a doubt, that they could cripple the very economy that enslaved them. So even in military defeat, the rebellion planted the seeds of a legacy that would grow for centuries. You see, the story of Bussa was far from over. Its true impact, that would only be understood much, much later.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows the most incredible transformation. In 1816, Bussa died a failed rebel. His story was suppressed for generations. Then, fast forward to 1985. The iconic Emancipation statue, with its powerful broken chains, is unveiled in his honor. And then, in 1998, Barbados makes it official. Bussa is named a national hero, cementing his place, not just in history books, but as a founding father of the nation's freedom.
And that, right there, is the real takeaway. Yes, the physical battle was lost, but the idea behind it, that unstoppable demand for freedom, that was not defeated. The rebellion absolutely shattered the planters' fantasy of a stable, happy workforce. It sent a shockwave all the way to London, giving abolitionists the perfect argument. They can now point to Barbados and say, see, this system isn't just immoral, it's dangerously unstable. It was a vital, bloody step on that long, hard road to abolition.
So this all leaves us with a really fascinating question. Bussa's rebellion was, by all military standards, a failure. But today, it's celebrated as a victory for freedom and the human spirit. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often is history truly shaped not by the battles that are won, but by the ideas that are ignited in the ones that were lost?